pork and bean soup with some salami grilled cheeses and some lemon poppy seed scones. So let's start off by, I was going to start off with the lemon poppy seed scones, but I actually think I'm going to start off with our pork, get it seasoned up and start to saute, and then we'll have time to make our soup kind of after this. So this is a pork loin roast. It was, as you can see, one full one, but it's really two. They kind of tie it together. I'm going to cube this up into nice little bite-sized pieces to go into our soup, and then I'm going to season it. We're going to do kind of a Cajun flavoring for it, and then we'll pan sear it off. We'll remove it, and then we'll get the rest of our soup kind of going. So something, yeah, I don't know. I was just kind of feeling like a bean soup, and one of my favorite bean soups is like that 16 bean pack that you can get, and it's like got Cajun flavors on it, and they're the dried beans, and I love them. So this is kind of a little bit of a play on that, but a little bit simpler on it. And then once we get these, diced up, kind of diced up or cubed up, we'll sear them off again. And I've got some Cajun seasoning, some paprika, onion powder, garlic salt, black pepper, and it'll just be lovely. Okay. I will say, this is pretty easy roast to chop up. Using a cleaver, if you ever have to do a lot of meat prep, cleavers work much better than your big chef knife. They just have a little bit more heft behind the blade. And it took me a really long time to realize that there was actually a good difference in the cutting and how much easier meat prep is with this. Because, it's kind of just cheaper a lot of times to just get the whole roast and kind of chop them up and use them in different ways. Okay. And today we had this, so this weekend I think we're so close to 90. It might have been like 89 or 88, but it was really hot. Got sun at the soccer games, and then last night I guess this cold front came in, and so it has been in the 50s. I think it was in 40s, and I was like, oh, can't go from the shock of a nice almost 90 day to cold and chilly. It makes it just feel so much more colder. So I was like, you know what? Pork and bean soup sounds delicious with a nice grilled cheese. Okay, we've got our pork loin roast here cubed up. Give my hands a quick rinse. And then we're going to season this up for this. And I'm going to use a little bit of Worcestershire, which will help keep these pieces of pork nice and tender. A nice little drizzle over the top. And then we're going to use some Cajun seasoning. Give a nice little good shake. I don't go too crazy on it because I don't want my to be super spicy, but I want those nice kind of flavorings and whatnot for it. And then we're going to add a little bit of paprika. They restocked a lot of my spices because it's like I'll run out and then it's like, oh, I need this, this, and this. And here we go. And I'm using smoked paprika because I think it will just give that nice smoky flavor with the beans and everything. So a good amount over that. We're going to add in a little bit of dried oregano. And just a bit of garlic salt. And a little bit of black pepper. And we'll give this a good toss. And then we're going to start searing it off in our pan. And then we'll remove it out so that we have a good, nice basin for our Dutch oven to cook up our veggies for it. I'm going to grab some tongs and I'll give them a nice toss, and then we'll heat up some oil and we'll get ready to drop these in just a second. So give it a nice, coat them all up. We want to make sure we get all of that lovely spices on each piece of meat here. On there. There we go. Oh, that, man overboard. On there. Okay, luckily everything's being cooked over here, so not a big deal. We're gonna add in a good amount of olive oil, about a tablespoon or so, enough to kind of give me a nice little basin on the bottom of my Dutch oven because this is a smaller Dutch oven.
Mary sent you good.
Thank you, Mary. We appreciate that. And then while our pan is heating up here to saute off our meat, let's work on our scones base for this. So these are sourdough scones, and we're going to do lemon poppy seed. Told you guys I was kind of craving lemons, so I was like, lemons are what, and I need a nice picture for our cookbook to finish off our scone section in there. So it serves two purposes. We're going to use three. And yeah, their favorite. And I think the kids will really, really like them as well because they love it. So we're going to do 2 cups of all-purpose flour here. We're going to kind of make our dry mixture, which we will then cut our butter into it so that we have this lovely kind of press and fold flaky scone. Thank you, Shannon. We appreciate that. So we got our 2 cups of flour in here. We're going to add in a half a cup of sugar, and then we'll use about a tablespoon later for dusting on top of the scone. So, but the nice thing is about scones is they're not overly sweet. Now, I do love to make a glaze to go on top, which I think gives them the perfect amount of sweetness.
Shannon says she's a little hard.
Thank you. Okay, so we've got our half a cup in here, and then we're going to add in 2 teaspoons of baking powder. Oops. Get this moved up here. There we go. 1. I need to get more baking powder. I might have to make a batch of baking powder myself to get me there, because most people don't know, but baking powder is just baking soda and cream of tartar and cornstarch. So you can make your own easy as well. So if you ever run out, just look it up. It's not hard. And we've got our baking soda and our baking powder, not baking soda. And then we're going to do a half a teaspoon of salt. And this is just going to be for, again, our dry base. We'll add in our lemon zest and our lovely lemon juice, and then the wet part. And our poppy seeds there. Okay, mix this up just so that when we cut the butter in, we're cutting it into, evenly into it. We're going to use 1 stick of cold butter. Make sure it's cold because you don't want it to be room temperature, because you don't want it to mush into your scone, as more keep its form so that you can do the press and folds to make that, again, lovely flaky layers of our scones. And I always like to quarter it. Okay, I feel like our oil is nice and toasty, so we'll take a quick pop or a quick break on here, and we're going to start searing off our pork. And here, and this is our nice kind of Cajun spiced pork loin that we cubed up. We seasoned it with Cajun seasoning, garlic, salt, black pepper, oregano, smoked paprika. So we'll have a lot of great flavor. I'm just going to kind of fill up the bottom of it and to get all of these beautifully seared off. And then I'm going to say that Cajun spice is just that's wonderful. Okay, let's finish off cutting our butter in here. And we'll get this all going in there so we can start cutting that off, cutting our butter into the flour mixture. Just about there. Now, you could also use a food processor to do it, but I think this method is just a little bit easier in the sense of you don't have to haul out a whole bunch of equipment. Give them a little toss in the flour first to kind of coat them up. And then we're going to use our pastry blades here. It's like a knife. It's got, 5 little blades. And we're going to cut that butter into the flour. And you essentially just don't want any pieces of butter bigger than like a pea. And I will say sometimes I'm very liberal on the size of my peas. We'll get really big peas because I'm like, good enough. But you don't want to leave your chunks too big because you can get like a butter pocket or void in there, which means you just won't get a nice flaky layer. Okay. Do my little thing. And then halfway through going through, just you'll see you're going to get little pieces of butter stuck between the blades. Just use your butter knife here to remove them. That way you can cut them in there nicely. And then once we have this cut up, we'll flip our pork and let it cook nicely on the other side. So it's nice and juicy. And just don't overcook your pork. You know, pork's one of those things, if you cook it too long, it gets tough. So just remember that they're small pieces of pork, so you don't want to overcook them. But I'll know when to flip them is when I start to see that brown kind of rise up on the sides, and then we'll flip them on the other side, and then they'll just need a little bit. Okay, I think we've got this all cut up. So beautiful. So there is our dry mixture. We're done with our blades. And we're going to go and we're going to flip our meat here and get them sauteing on the other side. And they should have this lovely, that paprika is going to give them a nice darker color, but they'll have great flavor. Beautiful. And kind of hard to see in here. It's turn it down just a for some reason it's got like a smoky barbecue smell. It's the paprika and it smells good. Okay, we'll let that cook for just a minute or two on that side, and then we'll remove these little pork bites, and then we'll get our next round in, and then at the end we'll toss them back in our soup. So I'm gonna grab 2 bowls, one for our pork bites and one for our wet mixture that we need to mix up here. And before we get to that wet mixture, I think I'm going to be ready to move these guys to the next stage. Just making sure they're all just about cooked perfectly. Lovely. It just smells so, so good. And these will have so much flavor going back into our soup at the end. It should just be lovely. And I will just say, I don't make pork stew often, but I do really love a good pork stew. So we've got our first round. We're going to get our next ones in and kind of sear them off in those little remainder of that oil. And then the drippings in this pan will also add really great flavor to our stew as well. Because they'll kind of caramelize, and then when we go to deglaze it, it will bring in flavor. I'm going to have to do 3 batches here because this roast was a little over, it was about almost 2 pounds. I think when I took it out because it's from my butcher box, it was about I think it was 1.93 pounds. So essentially 2 pounds. Okay, let's get our wet base going here. We need a half a cup of our sourdough discard. So I fed up my sourdough this morning, which is fine because you can use an active starter if you have it. It doesn't really matter so much in it. And I want to make some new sourdough bread for tomorrow. So we're going to use this because I have plenty in here. We're going to use a half a cup. I'm putting Jacques over there. Now, I will say if you use a nice bubbly starter, you might need to use just a teeny bit more or give it a good stir to deflate it so that you're not putting a bubbly lighter one in there, or making sure you have the right amount of kind of wetness in there. And we're going to add in 2 tablespoons of cream, and I'm using heavy whipping cream. 1 and 2. And we're going to have 1 egg. And we'll start mixing this together because I want to get that cream kind of worked in. And then we will add in our lemon zest and our lemon juice. Just use my dough whisk here, just to give it a little bit of a mixture. And there we go. And now We're going to use the juice from 1 whole lemon and the zest. Zest it first because it is much harder to zest after you juiced it. But let me get my pork over here, a quick little turn, so it has a chance to saute up nicely on the other side. Flip all of them over. And again, I'm searing these off on about a 7, so it's a pretty high on here, but we'll give you that nice little shell on the outside of your meat that is just so flavorful and delicious. And okay, let's get this guy zested up. So 1 whole, so it's going to be about, I find that 1 lemon gets you about a tablespoon of zest, but you don't want to use dried zest because it doesn't have the right flavor or texture. So always make sure you use fresh zest. And I always like to use fresh lemon juice instead of extract because I find that lemon extract has more of a chemical-y flavor, and I don't like it as much. Now, most of this lemon flavor you're going to get through the zest, but we're making a lemon glaze using fresh lemon juice. And that's going to give you the nice, really like pop of lemon flavor, that little zing. So get this in here. It's funny. My mom was like, "Oh, she was over there for dinner last night." She goes, "I forgot to bring my Meyer lemon over." She didn't realize she had a lemon tree sitting in her garage, and she found it, and she's like, "There's a lemon on it," and she's been like cultivating this lemon. It's been there since Thanksgiving, I want to say. So I don't know how she didn't know she had a lemon tree in her garage, but she did. And she's like, "I'm going to bring it over here so you guys can have it. It's like the perfect lemon." And now I'm like, "Oh, what am I going to do with this 1 Meyer lemon?" Because, there's not much you can do with 1 lemon if you want a lemony dessert. You need a lot of lemons. So I'm going to have to be creative with it. She's very, very proud of it. She moved it. It survived somehow for several months in her garage. And then she moved it in. She bought a special little light for it, nurtured it. And I was like, "Oh, it's so silly." And I always say, I love those cute little Meyer lemon trees, lime trees. And I had them. I grew lemons and limes, for a short while. But unless the plants are sitting right in front of my sink, they don't stand much of a chance because I'm not very good at remembering to water them. And put these guys in here. And even sitting in front of my sink, they still don't stand a chance. There we go. And get this. And then we're going to get our last little bit of pork loin that we seasoned and cubed up in here. And then we can finish up our scones and get them in the oven. But it's going to have just this amazing, nice Cajun flavor on these pieces of pork. And they will add lovely pops of flavor to the soup, especially those little drippings. Spread them out so they each get a little space on the pan on their own. There we go. And take this and put it right over here. And then we can finish up our scones. We've got it nice and zested. So now we're going to give it a quick slice and juice it. Now just make sure your lemon is nice and juicy. Now sometimes, you'll get a dry lemon. I find you get more dry limes than lemons, but if it isn't super juicy, then go ahead and get some more. Make sure this seems really juicy. I also like to try to get that pulp in there, so I use this instead of just a good squeeze because that adds more lemon flavor to this. And for, the base part, the lemon juice isn't going to give so much that lemon flavor as the rind, the lemon peel. Okay. We're going to give this a nice little mix up, and then we're going to add in a tablespoon of poppy seeds. And we'll get these kind of, I'll use up the whole rest of this for it. And I will say a little bit of poppy seeds go a long way to giving you that little speck of color, I always find. You know, unless you're having like a kolaches, you know, those little Polish like kind of treats, you don't get that much of the flavor in it.
You have a question? Are these Evie's favorite scones?
You know what? I bet you they will. She loves lemon, and she always is like, whenever I make lemon poppy seed, her and my oldest daughter, Lena, love them. So I haven't made these in a really long time, so I'll have to ask her when she eats them, but I have a feeling she's going to absolutely love them because she likes anything lemon, lime, or tarty. Just going to grab and make sure I get all of that out here. And then we're going to, I'll use my dough whisk to toss this until I've got a nice kind of loose crumb on it and or loose kind of a shag. And then we will turn it out on the counter and do our press and folds. So don't over mix it because you want to make sure you press and fold, but just kind of have a nice kind of dry shag to your dough like this. And then we'll flip it in just a second, but I'm going to get my pork over here tossed. Flip them all over. Lovely. Smells, again, so good. That Cajun seasoning with the pork just hits with that smoky paprika. It's like a spicy barbecue smell. Okay. We got these all. We'll let those finish off here in just a second. Let's get it working. Take all of this off right here. And then we'll put this out on our counter. So you're going to have this nice kind of dry shag. Don't worry about it. Once you get your press and folds coming together, you're going to get a nice base for it. So press and then kind of fold that dough. And it might seem really crumbly at first, but as you work and you press them in, they will form a lovely kind of chunk of dough. There we go. And then once we have the nice big mound, I'll divide it into two, divide it into half, and then we'll make 2 pucks. Now, if you want your scones to have a pop of yellow that makes them look more like lemon poppy seed, just in your liquid mixture, add in a couple drops of yellow food coloring to give you that, because so many of the yellow lemon poppy seed have all of that, food coloring in it to give you more of that lemon color. Here. Again, just fold on top. Don't knead. It's that press and fold. It gives you flaky layers. And anytime you see little dry crumbs, just scoop them in. Okay. We're about ready to divide this, but let me get our pork here because we're just about done with that. So I'll give my hands a quick rinse. And we can get our pork out, and I'll just turn off my Dutch oven until we're ready to start sauteing our onions and everything. But looks so good.
Do you know what you're making for dinner yet?
I'm not 100% certain yet at all. I have no idea. I'm still figuring it out one meal at a time on here. So it'll be yummy. Just not sure what it is. We'll see what the kids come home from school and say they want. That's a lot of times that gives me kind of my idea. And I should say kids, I should say when Torrin comes home from school, because his first thing is he always says he wants fried chicken or, something along that line. But we'll see. Okay, I'm going to turn my burner off on that. That way I can finish up the scones without it overheating here. Okay, so I'm going to take this bit of dough right here, and we're going to kind of divide it in as equally as we can in half so that we can shape up 2 pucks. And for that, you're just going to kind of push the edges in a little bit to round it out and then push it down. I tend to like my scones to be around 1.5 inches thick or height. So that way they're nice and they pop out a good amount.
You have a question? Did you get some sun this weekend?
I did. We had lots of soccer games this weekend and no shade. And the second day we came prepared with umbrellas, but we weren't quite realizing that there would be no shade at the football stadium. And so it was quite toasty. And we had yesterday was a high of almost 90, which is quite hot. And then today we're sitting at like 45, 50. The almost 40-degree temperature swings is kind of hard. Okay, so we've got our 2 beautiful little lemon poppy seed pucks. Take your little pastry cutter, slide it under, and then we'll move it right onto our parchment paper, which will allow it to bake up nicely. Now, we're not just going to bake them like a big old puck. We're going to cut them into 8s, and then we'll pull them out so that they have a little bit of space to breathe and bake up. It allows you to get a nice kind of crisp all the way around them, but still have that flaky soft in here. And I always say scones are like a happy medium between a biscuit and a cookie. A little touch of sweetness, not much, but so good. So I'm just gonna pull them out just a little bit. That way each one can bake up, get that heat around. Otherwise, you kind of get doughy centers if you kind of leave them, or you have to bake them so long that you then get a dry top or a dry bottom. And I like to cut them into little triangles because, the scones that I like were, eating a lot were the Starbucks ones, which are those little triangle ones when I was like younger. And so I like to do them like this. Beautiful. And you can just see that press and fold. That's going to give you so many great flaky layers. Okay, now before we pop these in the oven, we're going to brush them with a little bit of cream and then just sprinkle a little bit of salt, or not salt, sugar on top. Don't sprinkle salt. A little bit of sugar on top to give a nice kind of little extra sweet in case you want to eat them straight up without any glaze. But for these, I say the glaze is the best part because it gives you so much of that strong lemon flavor. So just about a tablespoon of cream. And you're just going to dab the top over them. This is going to give them a nice golden brown color on the top of them. And it helps protect that top base from getting too dried out. And beautiful. And then we're going to sprinkle regular sugar, but after we glaze them, my kids like it when I do with lemon poppy seed, that coarse decorating sugar. They like that texture. So we'll put some on.
Is that heavy whipping cream?
Yes, heavy whipping cream. So it's the same as the 2 tablespoons that we put in the dough on there. I always like to kind of simplify the recipe so they use the same stuff. But if you don't have enough, you can always do a little bit of milk on there. It doesn't give you quite as golden of an edge. Or if you want shiny scones, you can do an egg wash. This one's so flaky, it's coming apart. Put that layer back on. Beautiful. Now, what we're going to do is we are going to sprinkle just a little bit of sugar over the top of each one. You don't need a whole lot. Again, just a little pinch here. And that's going to give you a little extra sweetness because all of the scones, again, just have a 1/2 cup of sugar in them. So not nearly as sweet as cookies or muffins. A little sweeter than a biscuit, but just delicious. Beautiful. Okay, let's go pop these in the oven. These bake at 400 for 18 minutes. Now, I like to do the mini scones, but you can always make one big puck and cut them into squares or bigger scone shapes. Bigger is going to take a little bit longer to bake, about 20 minutes. Put them on your top rack so they get that nice kind of direct top heat from it. And then I'm going to set my timer for not 20 minutes, for 18 minutes at 400 degrees. Okay, while that is baking up around here, I'm going to wash my hands. We've got a little bit of sugar on them. But then I'm going to start prepping up the soup here. Okay, we got our delicious Cajun pork things. Those will be so fabulous in our soup. I'm going to turn on my oil now that it's kind of get back here. But I'll put it on a nice like 4. And then we're going to dice up our onion. And then we have carrots, celery, some kale, garlic. We're keeping the spices, kind of simple. And then I'm going to use some pinto beans for our beans and our pork and bean soup. And here, let's get there. And then I have the last bit of my chicken stock that we'll use up. And then we're going to use a little bit of ham bouillon with some water. And those little meat drippings in here is going to give such a great flavor to this soup. So, got our first half in there. Let those start, and you can see that paprika is already giving them just a gorgeous pop of color. I'll grab, I guess I can use my tongs right here. Coat them up. Looking gorgeous. Beautiful. We'll let those saute for just a second here. And let's get our carrots. We're going to use, I think I have 1 white, 1 yellow, and 2 orange carrots. Sometimes it's hard to tell the difference, but this is a yellow carrot. This is a white carrot. They both look yellow. But when you peel them, you'll notice the difference. I'll peel them first. So yellow, you can see, is very, very bright on the inside. And the white carrots, when you peel them, look like parsnips. So on the outside, they look the same. On the inside, different. They taste the exact same. So we've got our 2, and then let's get our big carrots here. I think the carrots work really well in this soup because that mild sweetness pairs well with the beans and the Cajun seasoning. So really lovely. And we'll cube these guys up. Apparently I missed the tip on that one. And then we'll add them in. We're going to make kind of a nice kind of savory mirepoix with the onions, carrots, celery, and garlic for this, which is one of my, this is kind of a base that I use for most of my soups because it adds such great flavor to the broth part. Okay. Let's get these guys kind of cubed up, diced up. So nice little bits of it because I prefer my veggies to be a little bit smaller in soup so that I can get some in every bite. Otherwise, you're committed to either a big piece of celery or carrot.
You have a question? Where do you find the rainbow carrot?
I get mine from Amazon Fresh, but they're part of Amazon Fresh owns, they own Whole Foods, and they're actually the Whole Foods carrots. They're the 365, but they have them in there for like a 3-pound pack for $2. So I really love Amazon Fresh because it does give you really cheap stuff, but good stuff. So it's kind of nice. Only I think downfall is you got to live near a big city in order to get it. So okay, let's get these. Costco, though, does have rainbow carrots. Theirs is already the pre-peeled ones, but they have them there. And then we'll get this guy who looks kind of like a parsnip, but does not have the parsnip flavor. So we've got our carrots. It's about, I would say, probably 1.5 cups of diced up carrots. We'll let them start to heat up in here with our onions. And then we'll give this a nice stir, kind of coat it around. Pick up some of those nice little meat droppings on the bottom. I'm going to turn it up to about a 4 now. That way we can start to get a good saute on these. And then I've got celery. I have 5 stalks of celery here, although they're smaller ones. So it's probably closer to 3 good-sized stalks. I'm going to cut off the tips of them because when they're already pre-cut like that, they tend to dry out and are more stringy. So do that. I'm going to cut some of them in half and some of them into the thirds because I just don't want super big pieces of celery in there. The nice smaller pieces like the size of my carrots, so they have great flavor. And get that guy going. And then we'll dice them up. We'll add them in. And then I'm going to mince up some garlic to add in as well for this. And this is just going to be our lovely, add such great flavor and depth to the base of our soup. Celery is just so wonderful. And I will say, if you don't love the like eating the celery part, throw in some bigger stalks of it, and then you can remove it out because it does give you that added note to your broth, a little bit more complexity, which makes it delicious.
Yeah, but what kind of knives do you use?
So I use, these are the Wusthof Classic. I have had mine for 17 years now. So it's been around the block a couple of times and I love them. On there, I got a set for my wedding present from my siblings, and it's the only knives I pretty much use. Except my cleaver, which I got from, your bank rewards. I got a nice cleaver out of that, and that's I think the only one outside of it. Okay, let's get some garlic here. But the nice thing about Wusthof is what I really like. So they have an affordable, the classic is what I like because it has good heft. They have a more affordable brand called the Wusthof Gourmet, which you think, oh, gourmet, that's more expensive. It's not. It's their cheaper ones, but they're really sharp knives. They're just thinner and not as heavy. Here. So we'll get these minced up nicely to add into our soup and kind of cook up a little bit. And then we can start working on our grilled cheeses. And then we need to make our glaze. I'll get everything kind of stewing up here in just a second. And I will add, we added some Cajun meat or seasoning to our meat. I'm going to add a little bit also to our soup here in just a second. So let's get our garlic in here. And we'll give this a nice little toss around. Let it coat up and give it a little minute or two to heat before we add in our spices. So I'm going to just turn it up a little bit. I'm going to give my hands a quick rinse since they're garlicky. And while we're waiting for that, I'm going to bring my other stuff over here to start prepping up our little grilled cheese here. So we have a little bit of our rosemary black pepper sourdough loaf from the other day. And so I'm going to slice it up and use it. When I do, instead of mixing it in the beginning process, because I like to make a bunch of loaves at a time, I add the spices during the lamination, which means you can kind of see a black pepper and swirl. But I find it still adds the great flavor, but it allows me to make multiple kind of batches at a time where I don't have to do them in different bowls.
Yeah, question is paprika spicy?
No, paprika is not spicy. Paprika is a very mild one, even the smoked one. But I do have Cajun spices in there, so Cajun can be a little bit spicier for those. But paprika is not. It gives you that kind of coloring that you think, oh, it might be spicy, but it isn't. Okay, let's get our slices of our sourdough here. Try to not cut them too thick. There we go. And we'll make our lovely grilled cheeses. This is, again, rosemary black pepper, so I'm doing kind of a Italian theme with it because I just feel like it goes well with the rosemary and black pepper. And I think will taste good with the soup too. And let's get these. That's when you get to this, like, I don't have a loaf thing to hold on. I've got a little edge here.
Do you sell your sourdough loaves?
I do not sell my sourdough loaves. I just make them for our family, and we eat a lot of them on there. Now, I will give them out to friends for it, but no, I don't sell.
And you make that bread?
I do. Make it from scratch. I make a couple, I would say like 4 or 5 loaves a week of our sourdough. I also make a lot of yeast breads. I like to change it up because some of my I will say all but one kid loves sourdough, but they all love yeast bread too. So I changed it up so he gets his, choice. And he claims he doesn't like sourdough, but when I don't tell him and he eats it, he's like, "Oh, this is good." And I'm like, "It's sourdough." We're gonna add in about a teaspoon of Cajun seasoning. Again, you can use less if you want to, or more, depending on how much spice you like. Oh, Torin looked at me because he knew it was him that I was talking about. He just got home from school. We're going to add in about a teaspoon of smoked paprika. Again, very mild flavor, but will be delicious. There, a little bit of oregano. And we'll put in a bay leaf. We're going to give this a good stir, and then we'll add in some of our broth for it. And then we've got kale coming in and beans in just a second, and then we'll put our meat back in. But I want these spices to kind of heat up for just a second. That heat brings out their flavor just a little bit more and will allow them to marry into that broth a little bit better. I'm going to start warming up my skillet so that we'll be ready for that in just a second. What we're going to do is we are going to use the rest of my chicken stock up, and then I have a little bit of ham bouillon and water for this. So this is my homemade chicken stock, and I'm down to like the very last of it on it, which is kind of perfect. So we'll add that in here. I would say I have about 2 cups of chicken stock left. And honestly, I was going to ladle it, but I can just pour it in there good old way. It's a little bit gelatinous in the beginning because that's that natural fat in there. And it's going to just give so much flavor. We made roast chicken, and then I made it from the leftover chicken carcasses, and we stewed it for about 24 hours to kind of help break down with some carrots, celery, onions, bay leaves in there just to give great flavor. I added in just a little bit at first to kind of bring up, and I want to deglaze the bottom of my pan so any of those tasty little bits that have been cooked on, I want to release them. And then let's add in the last of our homemade stock. So much flavor on there. That's what I used last night when I made my saffron rice. And my mom, she was like, "This rice is so good." And I'm like, "It's the homemade stock. It really does make a big difference." Okay. So I've got about 2 cups of that in there, of our homemade stock, and then I'm going to add in some water with some ham bouillon. That ham will pick up that kind of porky flavor with the beans, and it will just be delicious. So, if I can make it in there, that would be great. Here we go.
How was the halibut last night?
So good. I think I have finally found a fish my husband likes. He said, he was like, "This is the steak of fish." And I was like, "Halibut is really, really delicious." It was so good. And I have to say, he was like, "We could have that every day." And I was like, well, we didn't win the lottery, but we can have it once a month. It was very, very delicious. And it was funny because we had like a little bit left over. And my parents, because they came and ate dinner with us there, they were arguing about who was going to eat it the next day for lunch. And I was like, "You guys could split it." We're going to add in a nice little scoop of ham bouillon here. And I might add in a little bit more, but I want to just, before I add too much in, make sure with my chicken stock that already has good flavor to it. We'll let that come to a simmer, and then a little bit we'll add in some kale and some pinto beans. But let's get this guy going here. Let me check on, good, we got about 3.5 minutes left on that. I'm going to put a little bit of soft butter on the outside of each one of these so that I can kind of crisp it up on our skillet and make our lovely grilled cheese. And then we're going to use mozzarella, Genoa salami, and some pepperoni. And I think those spices will hit really well with the black pepper and the rosemary in this bread. Here. And this, I will say, the rosemary, black pepper, and then of course I use a little bit of garlic salt as well during that lamination process. But it is probably one of our favorite breads, our sourdough bread kind of combinations. You know, to me, the traditional is always going to be my favorite because I just love good old classic sourdough. But I will say this is one of our top ones. That and then the cinnamon swirl. So good. So good. Okay. Let's get my mozzarella out. And I'm going to get my cheese slicer. Now, the nice thing is you can always buy like the pre-sliced mozzarella, but if you slice it yourself, it doesn't have to be as thick in there. And it's a lot cheaper when you buy the blocks of things now. Of course, you got to be able to open it. There we go. Release the cheese. Okay, let me grab my little mousse slicer. He's my favorite. Gotta love the mousse. And we're going to add just a nice, and you see, very thin, nice thin layer. That way you can get a double layer of the cheese on sandwich between the meats. And that's my favorite way for grilled cheese without going too overboard.
Yo has a question for you.
What's for dinner tonight? There's your cheese tax. It's mozzarella, so I don't think you're going to like it as much. Some more bland cheese. Yeah, okay. I don't know what's for dinner tonight. I haven't figured that out yet. Just figured out lunch, so need a minute to process. But it will be delicious on there. I don't even know what protein I'm using. I have to go into my freezer and kind of select it. I've got I just got my recent order from Butcher Box and my Seed to Table, so I have so much in there.
Beef.
Okay, apparently we're having beef on there. I'll just have to decide which beef to put in. Beef tongue. I love beef tongue. I just remember my mom cooking it several times when I was a kid, and I really like it on there.
Yeah, question. Do you ever get takeout on busy days?
Yes, I would say once a week we get takeout or some things because our life is very chaotic and it changes. I have 5 kids, and then we have lots of kids in youth sports, and you're like, oh yay, my kids can finally sleep through the night and don't wake up super early. But then you're like, youth sports. So we are always out and busy or traveling, and so we'll get takeout several times. Once, not several times, but about once a week we get it. Which I know apparently my kids tell me that we never, like all of their friends eat takeout all the time. And I was like, growing up, we had like takeout maybe once a month. It was not, common practice as it is now. And I was like, you know what? One day when you get older, you'll appreciate all of the homemade meals that I make you. And you'll be craving that when all you're eating is cafeteria food from college or you're living poorly. Those after college budget foods, ramen noodles and stuff like that. Okay, we bake these here for about 18 minutes. And they look gorgeous. You can see they have these amazing flaky layers. In fact, I've got they've tumbled over because there were so many layers in them. But that's what makes them delicious. It's that press and fold. And these are the lemon scones now. With the lemon scones, lemon poppy seed, we're going to make a lovely lemon glaze to go over the top. But you want to let it rest for about 5 minutes to cool down, because if you try to glaze it right away, that glaze will slide right off and just pool on the bottom of your scones. So let them cool so you'll get a little bit of the slide, but not too much. We're going to put this next layer of mozzarella on here. And then slide this guy here, and we'll get these kind of cooking up. I have my skillet now on about a 4. So we'll get this going across. There we go. Perfect. Let's see this one up here. Always make sure I try to match up the right ones. So you don't want to have like a really big slice of bread on one side and not on the other. Okay, we are done with our meats and cheeses here. I'm going to give my soup a quick stir. We'll add in our kale and our beans. We'll add in the meat at the very end, but I want to give this a nice little mix up. Bring those flavors.
How's the cookbook coming along?
It is going really, really well. I will say we've got 130 pages or so of it. So that means we're gonna have over 100 recipes. So it's going really, really well. There's just a lot of like editing and going back and then double checking. And so it's going well. We're gonna cut off the bottoms of our kale so that it's not super stringy here. And I'm actually going to forgot I wanted to do that first, but pull off this little thing because I want my kale to be nice in my soup and not super bitter. And this stalk in it is what's actually the bitter part. The leaves are wonderful. Makes it just a little bit more tender.
As always, you have a question about the cheese slicer.
Oh, yes. So this cheese slicer, everybody loves it. I got it as a gift from my parents. It's actually from Germany. On there, it has like little German words on there. So unfortunately, I have no idea where they got it, but I love it. He's like the cutest thing ever. Because he's just, but I love fun little stuff like that. I own so many cheese slicers and none of them I bought myself. I don't know why my family and my friends give me cheese slicers. I do love cheese though, so it kind of works well. Okay, let's give our kale here a good chop up. You don't want to leave it the long leaves because then you'll be difficult to eat in your soup. So definitely chop it up. You could also use baby kale, which you don't have to do quite as much work for. We'll add this in.
Maria sent you.
Well, thank you, Maria. We appreciate that. I'm going to add in, and then we're going to add in some pinto beans. Now, you want to make sure you rinse your beans because you don't want that starchy, beany water in there. It will ruin your broth base of your soup. So go give this a rinse. And you can, if you don't love pinto beans, you could use like a Great Northern or cannellini, a lighter kind of a bean. I'm using pinto beans because I feel like the flavor works really well with ham or pork. And so it's kind of like that classic pork and beans, the beanie weenies. Add that in here.
Yeah, question. Have you thought any more about doing a you and Thorn cook along?
It's all in his ballpark. If he wants to cook along with me, I will happily cook along with him. I think it would be fun on there.
You guys could do a lemon tart tutorial.
We don't. That's like the worst. We'll do something he likes. He does not like lemon tarts. We'll do Rice Krispies. That's like his favorite. Delicious. So that nice smoky flavor to it. Okay, let's check these, and then we're going to make our lemon glaze, and then we will add our meat in at the very end with our soup. I'm going to do my flip. So when I'm making with really just with sourdough, it gets pretty, they're thicker. And so I like to do 2 flips, like a flip on each side, so cook it twice so that the first one is heating up so everything can get warm and melty inside. And then the second round is crisping up. Let's make our glaze here. So we're going to start out, we're going to add a little bit of lemon zest and then fresh lemon juice. We'll mix that with a little bit of powdered sugar. Then we'll add in our cream. Don't just do the lemon juice and the cream right away and then add in the sugar because the lemon juice will curdle the cream. But I find once you add it with the sugar, it doesn't really do that.
Linda sent you.
Well, thank you, Linda. We appreciate that. So just a light thing, about a teaspoon of zest. So you don't have to completely zest your lemon, but just enough in there. It will add a really bright flavor, but most of, again, that flavor is coming from the lemon here. And I think I can probably, it was a pretty juicy lemon, so I might be able to get by with 1 lemon, but we'll see. You want about a tablespoon of lemon juice. Go any more, you're going to have to use a lot more powdered sugar, and you just don't need that much glaze for these. There we go. And use, again, fresh lemon, no lemon extract, no bottled lemon juice. It just doesn't give you the right flavor. Okay. And now let me grab my powdered sugar. We're going to mix in about 1/4 cup of powdered sugar with it, and then we'll add in our cream. Sure. Let me grab a whisk here. And you can see it just will dissolve it instantly. Now, I like to add cream, but again, if you want a super tart glaze, just keep it lemon juice. I find that this mellows it out just lovely. So 1, 2 tablespoons of cream. It gives a little bit of a richness to it, but again, makes it lovely. And then we're going to add in the rest of the powdered sugar up to a cup to get you to that consistency of glue. That way you can drizzle it over. And beautiful. We'll give it a little mix. We'll let it sit for just a second to allow it to dissolve some of those clumps, and then we'll add in a little bit more because we're still a little runny. But I can hear my grilled cheese, so I think it's telling me it's ready to start flipping. Now we're going to do the crisping up on each side for this. I'm going to give our soup a little bit of a stir here. And then at the very end, we will toss in that pork. Again, I just don't want the pork to continue to overcook, but so delicious. Okay. Let's add in the last little bit and go little by little because you don't want to add too much. Then need to add in more liquid because if you add in more liquid, you're most likely going to need to add more powdered sugar because you'll be surprised how much a little itty bit of liquid can take of a powdered sugar. Just about there. Okay, I think we're pretty close. We'll let it sit. I'm going to grab my decorating sugar because my kids love it sprinkled over the top of their things. Just have to remember, there it is. Haha. This is what my oldest daughter, she goes, "You make the lemon poppy seed muffins, Mom, you need to put lots of this sugar." She wants those little sugar crystals on it, but it is a delicious part. Let's slide this over so I can get these guys going. Now they've cooled off for at least 5 minutes, but they should still be nice and warm. You don't want to wait until they're completely cold because then they won't be as nice. But we're going to drizzle over with our glaze here for it. And again, this is going to add a nice pop of that lemon flavor to your scone. This is where you get most of that lemon flavor in there. We have that fresh lemon zest and juice in the scone, but this right here on top is going to give you the pop. And while they're warm, it will slide over, but it will still stick on the top, but it won't be as heavy. So make sure you do a good glob so that you get it all on there. And then, making sure I get there. Now I've got to go back over with the decorating sugar. Last time I was told I skimped on it, so I will make sure I put plenty on there for them.
Yeah, question. What time are you streaming for dinner tonight?
For dinner tonight, we'll probably, around 8-ish, kind of our usual time on there, unless our schedule changes, but that's what I'm hoping for. And sprinkles. Okay. Beautiful. We're getting there. Gorgeous. That one needs a little bit more. I realize my skillet must be slightly sideways. Okay, let me wash my hands. And then we need to finish up our soup here. I'm going to add a few things of fresh thyme. I'm adding them towards the end so you get a little bit more of that fresh pop of it, but not a whole lot, just enough. It's kind of almost like a garnishing herb for this meal because I want those Cajuns. I didn't want it to overpower and stew in it too much. And then we're going to also add in our meat and then our green onions. I think one more little twig. Here we go. Okay, we've got our fresh thyme. We're going to add in our meat. This is our Cajun pork that we sauteed off and we kind of removed it to the side. Add it in here with all of those lovely little drippings too, because that will add flavor.
What cut of pork did you use?
This is a pork loin roast that I cubed up. So it's a pretty tender cut that works really well in stews or that slow roasting.
And you get this question quite a bit. Do you sell your starter?
I do not sell my starter on there because there's a lot of things you need to do to sell it and stuff like that. There's like the dehydrating process for it, but I don't on there. But I do have a video and a tutorial and a recipe card that's available for everybody that you can create your own starter. It is super easy. It takes about a week to get to the right level of fermentation. And the only real thing that you need to do is make sure you're using unbleached flour. I think people make the mistake and use whatever flour they have in their pantry. And if it's not unbleached, you will not be very successful with your starters. The bleaching process kills most of the yeast in your on flour, the natural occurring yeast on flour. So that's why I always say you can do it with unbleached. It's just going to take a lot longer to get it to the right bubbly happiness for sourdough bread. And then I also have videos on how you can make your own sourdough loaf and everything like that. It's not a difficult process. It takes about 5 minutes a day. And that's all you need to get there. And you should be able to make like a nice sourdough loaf in a week. And I'm going to have in our cookbook, we'll also have like a whole section on making sourdough starter and everything like that. Here we go. Got my green onions in there. Let's check how this is doing. Looking beautiful.
Can you go over the seasoning for the pork?
Yes. So the pork, I actually seasoned it up with Cajun seasoning, paprika, smoked paprika, oregano, garlic, salt, black pepper, and a little bit of Worcestershire. And then I sauteed it off. And then we kind of used some of those same spices in the base of our soup for it. Okay, this is looking fabulous here, guys. So I'm going to turn that off. My grilled cheese is pretty much done. So let me slide this guy out of the way. We'll bring this guy over with my bread knife. Where did I go? We'll just use it disappears everything. Ha! It is right under the mousse, right in front of my eyes. I was like, I don't see it. It was underneath the mousse.
You say I can't.
I know. Well, you can't, but he'll be like, I looked everywhere for it. And I like open up the fridge and I'm like, right here, like right there. But I mean, there's times when you're like, why can't I see this on here? Okay, look at these beautiful sandwiches. We've got our soup. We turn off. Okay, guys, let me get everything ready to serve up our things. But these are going to be fabulous, guys. We'll kind of cut one right now. You can just see that ooey gooey deliciousness in here. Okay, let's get going. Let's get our plate out, a bowl for our soup, and let's use my little cauldron. I love my little cauldrons. Although I say in the summer, I don't like to use my cauldrons because I feel like they're very winter, but it's cold day, so we can still use them. I get a little hung up on holiday things sometimes. I'm like the person who will buy my kids holiday shirts. Then I'm like, we can only wear them during the holiday season. You can't wear them outside, but they're like, I like it. I'm like, I know, but you can't. You can't. Okay, guys. Let's slide this soup over here. It's so delicious. Okay, for lunch today, we have our homemade pork and beans soup. We used lovely Cajun seasonings to season up the pork that we seared off, and it was a pork loin roast. Then we made a lovely base to our soup using carrots, celery, onions, and kale and pinto beans. And then my homemade chicken stock, and then a little bit of ham bouillon. And then we have delicious homemade sourdough grilled cheeses. This is on our rosemary, black pepper, and garlic loaf with mozzarella cheese. You see how the squeeze it pops through there. Pepperoni and Genoa salami. And then for a sweet treat at the end, we have our gorgeous lemon poppy seed scones glazed with some lemon glaze and then sprinkled with some decorating sugar. So it has all that lemon flavor and that little crunch on the top that the kids love. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us here. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I try to do live cooking shows every single day, kind of show you what we're making for our family and hopefully teach you guys something along the way. Again, we do upload all of our videos to the link on our page. So if you ever want to recreate any of these recipes at home, you can just go to our page, search for what we made. We've got our Cajun pork and bean soup with our grilled cheese and our lemon poppy seed scones. Well, guys, and we also have a link to our Amazon storefront that has all of our different cooking gear and gadgets in it. Got my hex-clad knives, cutting boards, everything in there for you guys to check out. But again, thank you so much for joining us here. Don't